Okay. Good evening, everyone. 恭喜恭喜 We should know this now, right? Let's do the Chinese way. 恭喜恭喜恭喜 On behalf of the Chinese Club, I would like to thank you again for coming to MiraCosta College to welcome the Chinese New Year together with us, the Year of the Tiger. We are very honored and pleased that Rosemary Gong is joining us today. I first met Rosemary a few years ago during the Chinese New Year celebration for the Year of the Monkey at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco. The two of us happened to be sitting next to each other in the audience, listening to the lecture given by a Chinese underground writer who really seemed to have a bit too much to drink. But that was when I first learned firsthand not to drink and trying to speak English at the same time. It's a bad combination. However, our brief encounter at the Commonwealth Club somehow connected us. I became one of Rosemary's first readers for her wonderful book, which has a very Chinese name, Good Luck Life. Rosemary has inspired me to share my cultural heritage with a larger audience like today. And most importantly, I came to appreciate my own culture with less critical eyes. Perhaps we should say that I now see my Chinese culture through the eyes of Auntie Lau. For those of you who has read Rosemary's book, now know Auntie Lau is everybody's wise auntie. Auntie Lau is a little Chinatown lady whose best advice for the Chinese New Year includes don't sweep the floor on the first day or good fortune will be swept away. This is advice which, as my husband would tell you, he's in the back, I have probably taken a little too much, too hard. And one of my Auntie Lau's favorite is be Chinese fashion forward by mixing red and pink. I guess I'm actually following her advice today. With that said, as Rosemary Gong has introduced us to Auntie Lau, it is now my pleasure to introduce my dear friend, Rosemary Gong, to our North County MiraCosta community. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. How's the volume on this? Is everyone great? Wonderful. Gong hei fa choi. Sunning Phi Lock. That's Cantonese. Oh, I'm sorry, can you not hear in the back? How's that? Little better? Louder. Ooh. I'm scaring myself. But it's the Year of the Tiger, right? Time to scare ourselves a little bit. Take new risks. Inject new energy into those lagging projects. So, as Aubrey had mentioned, this is an incredibly auspicious time for me to be here because Aubrey and I met very auspiciously during that fated night at the Commonwealth Club. I was developing my book, Good Luck Life, at that time, and I had sold my manuscript to a publisher, and I was looking for specific specialists who were coming from the Mandarin and the Taiwanese perspective, especially because I came from a Cantonese perspective, and those were the leading dialects of language and background that I wanted to validate and have a universal practice in terms of all of this Chinese celebration and practices, because the Chinese is such a fragmented people. As many of you know, that there are so many regions, types of dialects, and ways of practice, especially from north and south, east and west. And as I was developing my book, I wanted to be able to have something that was universal, a dummy's guide, because I noticed that there were so many people who were not necessarily Chinese that were entering my culture. through intermarriage and also through adoption. And they were very curious about the culture and how they could begin practicing and understanding this rich culture and history and mythology. And so that is one underlying reason why I started to develop Good Luck Life. And on that night, I met Aubrey. We bonded because of the misfortune of this famous Shanghainese author who happened to get sloshed at the podium. But nevertheless, when we were talking more and more, I knew that I had found my Taiwanese expert. And so Aubrey at that time was in Monterey, and I've been following her ever since, and so we've become great friends, and it's so wonderful to be here with you today. Now, I have to admit that it wasn't very long or far away where I never really would have visualized myself as an author, much less someone in authority on Chinese American celebrations and culture, because I'm a small town girl. I grew up in the Central Valley in a very small town by the name of Riverbank, California. Does anyone know Riverbank, California here? I think this lady here might know Riverbank, California, but it's about 10 miles from Modesto in Stanislaus County. And when I was growing up, my family was the only Chinese family in that town. So when I was growing up, there was no calligraphy lessons, there were no Chinese language classes, there was no ribbon dancing. We barely had Kung Fu at that time. But there were I had neighboring aunties and uncles and cousins that lived in various towns, as well as my grandparents. And for all the holidays, the Chinese holidays, we would gather for celebration and having dinners, and we would practice another overlying series of holidays on top of the American holidays that we had practiced. And because my family was a bit isolated, we were very tightly bound and tightly knit. Now, when I graduated from college and I had gone to San Jose State University, I moved to San Francisco for my first job, and I've been working about 20 years now in advertising and marketing. And I chose, though, to live in Chinatown so I could be right around the corner from my grandparents, who were retired at that time. And my grandparents, as many of you know, probably in the Asian traditions, that the younger generations are often tasked to keep an eye out on the older generations. We live generationally. And I have to admit, though, my grandparents did a much better job of keeping an eye out on me than I did on them. As you can tell, I act like an American, I speak like an American, I admit I even think like an American, but I'm also Chinese, and I wasn't willing to toss away that side of me. And then in 2001, my grandfather passed away, and he was the last of his generation. And it was in his passing that was the catalyst for me to develop my book, Good Luck Life. And I did this when I couldn't find anything like it in the bookstores. I was looking for something to help me remember all the Chinese traditions that I grew up with, like sharing mooncakes during the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, making zheng. Zheng is sticky rice wrapped in bamboo leaves for the Dragon Boat Festival. I admit I didn't know a whole lot about the Dragon Boat Festival and what it all entailed until I developed my book, and I was able to develop that full chapter. We also visited the Chinese cemetery not once but twice a year to honor our ancestors, to sweep the grave sites, and to prepare the graves for winter. We also celebrated the milestones of life in Chinese style, such as the Chinese wedding, the red egg and ginger party to welcome new babies into an extended family and our community. There's also the big birthdays, the longevity birthdays, where we would celebrate decade birthdays, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, in grand fashion with very large banquets of, courses of 8 or 9 courses, and almost everybody that you've ever known over the course of your lifetime. Now, the most important holiday is approaching. Does anyone want to take a wild guess as to what that is? It's the Chinese New Year, commonly known as the Lunar New Year, because